Today we are talking about a guy that we haven't talked about in months, because ever since he got traded from the Calgary Flames over to the Dallas Stars, a lot of the video topics that we could have explored just didn't really end up happening anymore, because I'll admit that part of the big reason we were talking about him a lot this year was because of the idea of him potentially getting traded to my favorite team, the Vancouver Canucks. But today, we are talking about one of the biggest, baddest, and most amazing additions that the Dallas Stars made heading into what is now going to be their second straight Western Conference Finals appearance. Let's talk about Chris Tanev, the other defenseman from Calgary that the Vancouver Canucks were targeting, because when it comes to Tanev, man oh man has he become a problem for opposing teams in the 2024 Stanley Cup Playoffs, and with the big... Do I want to say, resurgence? I don't think that's the right way to put it. I think it's more so just a spotlight being tossed onto this guy that we have not seen in the past, with everybody talking about Tanev in the ways that they are. It's really starting to educate a big body of NHL fans that are starting to figure out things that many Vancouver Canucks fans just kind of always knew, always acknowledged, but was never really too mainstream. So today, let's go over onto a tweet made by Dmitri from during yesterday's game. It's during because this was at 11:21 p.m. The game wasn't over yet, I'm pretty sure, but Dallas Stars defenseman Chris Tanev in round 1 played 46 minutes and 34 seconds against Jack Eichel at 5v5. The Stars were up 3-0. You then had yourselves Chris Tanev in round number 2, 68 minutes and 43 seconds versus Mackinnon at 5v5. Stars are up 3-1. Now, I don't know what the Stars up means. I'm kind of stupid, I'm not gonna lie. I think... What is he referring to? The amount of goals that go in during this period on the ice where Chris Tanev is playing off against these opposing teams' top centers. But this entire conversation with Tanev has opened the door to talking about how much of a defensive monster he is. Chris Tanev, his contract is expiring at the end of this season, and he will be a free agent at 34 years old, and he is going to get paid. Absolutely paid, because if you go over to the Dallas Stars and their line combinations, Tanev is currently playing with Esa Lindell, but you could also say that with the dynamics of this D-core in general, Tanev's defensive ability allows Heiskanen to really exhibit more of his offensive game. Because, that number 1 defenseman from Finland, Miro Heiskanen, the guy who had just bested out Cale Makar, because that title is always going to be up for grabs when these two teams meet each other. Heiskanen ended up getting one over, and I think a guy like Chris Tanev and his defensive stability really allows that to happen more so than if Tanev's presence was not there. He has himself currently 1 point in the 13-game sample in the postseason and 5 points in 19 games for the Dallas Stars in the regular season, but that doesn't really matter. Again, Chris Tanev is the ultimate shut-down defenseman. He knows just how to read plays in his own zone when the opposing team is cycling. He knows how to block shots. He knows how to suppress dangerous opportunities. He is so smart and defensively sound, and I feel like Vancouver Canucks fans knew this for years. This tweet by Dmitri was posted onto Reddit. Chris Tanev in round 1 versus Jack Eichel and against Nathan MacKinnon in round 2. Has Tanev always been this good? Signor Poopy Butthole goes out there and says, it seems wild that his highest cap hit was only 4.5 mil. And then you've got a bunch of Canucks fans saying, we've been trying to tell people this since 2012. He has always been this good. I remember Canucks fans offering Tanev as one of the runners-up when Marc-Edouard Vlasic was considered the pinnacle of a defensive defenseman. Chris Tanev is my favorite player in the league, and has been for about a decade. He quietly shuts down anyone and everyone, but because he doesn't put up points, nobody ever talked about him. I considered him priority number 1 when it came to extending people in that 2020 offseason, and was/am absolutely livid that betting ran out of time and let him walk. He's the defenseman that I wish I could have been. And that, of course, is one of the biggest benchmarks of Vancouver Canucks hockey from the 2020s. The Jim Benning disaster free agency class of 2020, when you let Markstrom, Tanev, and Toffoli walk. The idea going around, there was no way they could lose out on all 3 of them, right? No way. They got to at least keep 1, and then they kept none. And the team struggled for a while. They made some panic trades, and Jim Benning got fired, and now Rick Tocchet, Patrick Allvin, and Jim Rutherford are here, and the team is looking a lot better. But still, Chris Tanev being a part of this roster and being one of the most important pieces, arguably, just seeing him leave in the offseason, sign a contract with Calgary that you could debate was pretty much within the Canucks price range. That was the frustrating part about it, and I think a lot of Canucks fans, myself included, we haven't really lived that down, but seeing that Tanev is so good in the Dallas Stars system, he's playing on a stacked team, he's shutting down guys like Jack Eichel and Nathan MacKinnon, which is not surprising. Like, you know how you talk about the line matchups up front? Okay, you need to have a JT Miller versus Connor McDavid type thing. You need to have the Jack Eichel and Matt Duchene conversation. Like, you need these forward matchups and the identity of these matchups to be able to understand where a series is going to go. But the number 1 defenseman going out there and challenging these forwards as well also plays a part. And Chris Tanev has been so pristine in this postseason run that, I mean, he just got the best out of Jack Eichel and Nathan MacKinnon, and he beat him. What now? Everybody was talking about Edmonton being the favorites for this series against the Canucks. Was Chris Tanev going to go out there and shut down Connor Mack as well? What about Leon Draisaitl? Tanev has played in Vancouver and Calgary his entire career. Now Dallas, I get it, but he's had so much experience taking down these Oilers that I honestly would have been super intrigued to see that, but of course we're not going to because Vancouver's going to win later today. Hopefully I didn't just jinx myself. Knock on wood, nothing bad happens there, but Chris Tanev has been the number 1 defensive defenseman in the playoffs, and I am not going to stray away from that. Here's another tweet that goes out there and just talks about some of the dominance out of the Tan Man himself. Chris Tanev, as Bruce Levine goes out there and says, radio analyst for the Dallas Stars, tonight had 4 hits, 2 takeaways, and 9 blocked shots in 32 minutes and 58 seconds time on ice. He and Esa Lindell were on the ice against Nathan MacKinnon for most of his shifts in the 3rd period and overtime. He might be the best trade deadline pickup in Dallas Stars history. Now, the Dallas Stars have been a team for a while now. I mean, Minnesota North Stars, etc., etc. There's a lot of deep history with this team. But to go out there and say that Chris Tanev could arguably be the very best one ever? I mean, it speaks to the volume as to what he's doing with this team, but it also kind of signifies that, yeah, no, the Dallas Stars, they're in it to win it, baby. I mean, they're in the Final Four. You can't really dispute anybody who makes the Final Four, right? So, Chris Tanev, everybody. I am super excited to see what's happening in the next round. There was another tweet that was going kind of viral. This was so funny. Like, if you're a fan of wrestling, Mesmerada went out there and tweeted this: JT Miller having to finish his check on Chris Tanev in the Western Final, and included is the video clip of Shawn Michaels' "I'm Sorry, I Love You" sweet shit music against Ric Flair at WrestleMania 24 in 2008. That is so funny, bro. Like, my gosh. Oh, sweet shit music, and then it goes for the 1, 2, 3. That's JT Miller finishing his check against Chris Tanev in the Western Conference Final. What an amazing tweet. Hopefully, it's not that dramatic, but, the Canucks playing off against Chris Tanev, that's going to be really nuts. Might I also remind you that before the Vancouver Canucks went out there and had this crazy run in 2024, Chris Tanev was the guy that got the run started in 2020. He scored the overtime winner against Nashville in the play-in series to win that game within the first 11 seconds in OT and put the Canucks in the first round against the St. Louis Blues. So, Tan Man will always have my heart. If you're a Canucks fan tuning into this video, then hey, we'll see what happens in the next round. But if you're a fan of any other team, then this is what we've been trying to tell you for a decade now. Chris Tanev has been so good, and now he's getting that recognition because he's finally in the playoffs and he's finally doing some damage. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.